Feeding your tarantula is fairly simple. All you do is take the food item, such as this spotted cockroach, open up the enclosure, drop the cockroach in, and pretty much a tarantula will do everything else. Now, when a tarantula grabs its prey, it uses its front two legs, called pedipalps, which actually are not part of the legs at all. They look like legs, but they're actually just assist in helping the spider hold its food. So it'll grab the food with its pedipalps and bring it underneath its body where its fangs are located. Now that fangs are like sharp talons. They actually go right through the cockroach's exoskeleton and puncture it. And out of the fangs will come the venom. The venom doesn't only paralyze the cockroach or paralyze the prey item, but it starts to digest the prey item. It's like a stomach acid. It goes into the prey, paralyzes it, and starts turning everything inside of the cockroach or into the prey item into more like a mush, into like a soup. And then the tarantula will just suck it up through its mouth parts. Now, it's kind of gross to us on how tarantulas eat, but you have to remember, they don't have mouths like we do. They can't take a bite of their food, chew it up, and swallow it. Spiders have to make their food into a liquid and drink it. So they're not just drinking the blood out of their prey items, they're actually dissolving everything inside of that animal and drinking everything. So when they eat an insect, all they leave is the empty shell. Preventing illness in your tarantula can be best stopped by providing your tarantula, first of all, with the appropriate habitat. Research the tarantula that you want to purchase. Make sure if it's from a humid area, you provide it with the proper humidity. Or if it's from a drier climate, make sure you give it a drier environment. Or some tarantulas prefer cooler areas as some of those tarantulas that want hotter areas. So to prevent illness, pretty much you just want to set up your tarantula cage to the appropriate habitat to stop illness altogether. If your tarantula starts being lethargic, starts being inactive, go backwards in the steps that you took to get to that enclosure. Make sure you have all the appropriate substrate, the appropriate temperature as well. Once a tarantula starts to crash, it's very, very hard to bring it back, and oftentimes they will just unfortunately perish. So as a preventative, set your tarantula up in the appropriate habitat, research your tarantula. There are great books out there. There's a lot of literature on caring for tarantulas. Get a book about them so you have a resource to go to. Also, you can also go online as well. There's a lot of great information online, but also be aware there's a lot of bad information online as well. So make sure you get it from a good source. Tarantulas, as with all arthropods, shed their exoskeletons as they grow. Now, when a tarantula sheds, it's often quite startling because you go into your tarantula enclosure and a tarantula is actually flipped over on its back. And a lot of people might assume that the tarantula has just died. That is not true. In fact, the tarantula is just about to shed. So right before they shed, they actually flip over on their back. It allows them to get their exoskeleton off a lot easier. They'll start to move blood through their body and will actually pump up their new skeleton and push off the old skeleton. And if you look, here's the top of a shed skeleton. You can see the little tiny holes where the tarantula actually pulled its legs out of. And this collapsed area right here is the abdomen. The top of the carapace will break off, and then the spider will push off the old exoskeleton. Now, as a spider matures, the spider will shed less often. A full-grown adult tarantula will pretty much just shed about once a year. As they're growing continuously, they shed quite more frequently. Also, which is pretty neat, is they shed everything, including their fangs. You can see right here that they have shed their fangs as well. Now, if you want to breed your tarantulas, you're going to have to sex your tarantulas, which isn't the easiest thing to do. If you're not a spider expert, the best way to sex your tarantula is wait till they're full grown. Now, male tarantulas, such as this male Chaco golden knee tarantula, as compared to the female, I'll gently put him behind her. You can see that she has a larger body as compared to his thinner, smaller body. He also appears to have longer legs because of his small body as well. Now, if you take a closer look at this male Chaco golden knee tarantula, you can see that he has little tiny hooks right there on his first legs. And those little hooks assist this tarantula in grabbing the female's fangs to keep him out of his way as he mates with her. These appendages right here, the pedipalps on a male tarantula, look like tiny little boxing gloves, and that's where he stores his sperm. He uses those little pedipalps to transfer the sperm to the female. Female tarantulas, as I said before, are also a lot larger and bulkier than the males. Now, breeding your tarantula can be a tricky process, because if you're not careful and the female is not in the mood, she could potentially kill the male. So you always want to be present during this time. Now, to know your tarantulas are breedable, the female will most likely be more fertile right after she sheds her skin, after she has a shed. So after your female sheds, wait a couple weeks for the exoskeleton to harden up. Then you can introduce a full-grown male tarantula of the same species. Now, you always want to take the male and put the male in the female's enclosure and put them face to face. Now, once you place the male in with the female, as I said before, stay with them, because if the female is not in the mood, she could potentially kill your male spider. But if he is in the mood, if your male spider decides to mate, what he'll start doing is he'll start using his pedipalps and drumming the ground and kind of arm waving and signaling to her that he is willing to mate. And if she accepts it, she'll raise her body up off the ground. And the male will use those special hooks on his front legs to put it underneath her fangs to keep the fangs out of a safe distance, to keep the fangs from coming down on him, actually. Then he'll use the pedipalps, those two little tiny legs near his fangs, to insert the sperm into the opening located at the base of the female's cephalothorax. Once you've mated your tarantula, you will want to make sure you feed her well. Give her a lot of food. This will help her create energy and produce a good batch of eggs. Now, the egg sac will be produced in about 4 to 20 weeks, depending on the species. Now, before the egg sac is actually produced, what she'll do is she'll start doing some excessive webbing, getting ready for it to arrive. Now, hopefully one morning you'll wake up and she'll have the egg sac produced, and some species will carry it right underneath their body. Now, during this period, you want to leave your tarantula alone. You don't even want to feed her or go into her enclosure, because if you bother her, she will actually destroy the egg sac, or she'll even actually eat the egg sac. So you want to give her as much privacy as possible and leave her alone. Now, the egg sac, depending on temperatures, will hatch in between 4 to 16 weeks. Now, once the egg sac hatches, you want to remove the babies. Now, the nymphs should be left in the egg sac together and left until their first molt, until they shed. And then you'll want to separate the babies. But be aware that there is some cannibalism. Some babies will eventually eat smaller siblings. That's just the way it goes. But when you remove the babies, when you separate them, you can use tiny little film canisters like this. 35mm film canisters work great. Make sure you poke some holes in the top. You don't really need any substrate in there. You can put a little bit of twig or a little bit of moss or something just for the spider to hang on to. You want to feed them very small food items. Fruit flies work very well. Wingless fruit flies are available in the market. They're easy to breed. Small pinhead crickets. You don't need to feed them that much, just about once every 2 or 3 days. Once they get bigger, they can graduate to larger containers. Just make sure there's ventilation in the top.